I'm David Grossman. You're watching Jexperts, where we talk to experts in our community on jewishreview.ca. Welcome. Very happy to have in the studio with me today Aviva Abraham, who does personal insurance and group benefits. Aviva, welcome to the studio. Glad to have you here.
Hi, David. It's so great to be here today.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about first how you got into this, because I know you are a CPA, so you have this designation. You worked in the States for a while, and then you've been doing insurance for about 10 years. So you have a lot of experience. So how did it all happen for you? Why insurance?
Well, that's a great question, David. I started my career, like you said, as an accountant. I was born in New York, grew up in New York. Actually, I grew up in a family of lawyers. My father and brother are lawyers. And about 15 years ago, my father's best friend was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. By the time he died 2 years later, he had left his wife and 3 young kids with no savings. All their money was gone, and they were actually in a bit of debt. My father had to fundraise with some other people in the community to help get them back on their feet. And at the time, that had a really big impact on me, and I said to myself, there's got to be another way. There's got to be some sort of thing that we can do so that this doesn't happen to other people. And I started researching and asking questions and trying to find an answer. I was living at the time, I got married and moved here to Toronto, so I was living at the time here. And the more I checked into it, the more I researched, I found that there are healthcare solutions that are available, and especially now, 15 years later, there are even more solutions available to Canadians.
Let's talk about the kinds of solutions that there are, because there's a lot of different things that can happen to people. I mean, in the very unfortunate example that you gave us, the person died. So they didn't, I don't know if they had life insurance or not, but there's other things that go on while they're still alive with healthcare and others, and in Ontario we have OHIP. So what should people have? Okay,
so a lot of people actually think that the government will take care of all their medical expenses and that OHIP covers everything, but it's not true. OHIP does cover some of your doctor visits, covers hospital, and some other medical expenses, but there are a lot of other expenses that are not covered. There's drug, there's dental, there are other types of medical doctors that you could visit that you'll have to pay out of pocket for. And so, especially if you are self-employed or if you work for a company that doesn't have group benefits, you're going to be paying out of pocket quite a bit if you don't have any sort of health plan.
Yeah.
And the other thing you asked about was what else? What other kind of insurance can help with that? There's critical illness insurance and there's disability insurance.
Right.
And those cover 2 different things. So critical illness is, God forbid, you're diagnosed with a covered condition. And there are 24 covered conditions. So if you're diagnosed with a life-threatening condition, then you would get a tax-free lump sum payout. Otherwise, with disability insurance, God forbid you're injured, something happens to you and you can't work, or you get sick and you can't work, you'd get a monthly payout. Again, most times that's tax-free.
So what are some of the more popular types of insurance? Like if somebody has no insurance, I mean, you've mentioned quite a few different kinds of insurance, and I imagine insurance is probably the last thing people want to think about, because they don't want to think about what's going to happen if I get sick. Yeah. What do you find most people are lacking? And if I was to start off and say, all right, I got to fill a major gap, because I'm exposed, what do you find most people are missing?
Well, actually, in today's world, healthcare expenses, the cost of healthcare is the biggest disruptor to our finances. Drugs, cancer drugs, can cost up to $10,000 in a month, and that can ruin somebody's whole life if they have to pay for that out of pocket, if they don't have any type of health care.
So are you saying OHIP wouldn't cover that?
No, the government will cover a limited amount of drugs when it comes to cancer, but there's a big bulk of those drugs that are not covered or partially funded by OHIP. And a lot of people are not aware of that, which is part of what I do, is educating people about what is covered, what isn't covered, and how to protect yourself. And today there are a lot more solutions available to people than there were even 5 years ago. So it's good for people to check it out, and to check it out with a specialist who knows.
Like yourself, of course.
Yes, who knows what's available out there. It's also important to work with somebody who's independent, because everybody has a different situation, whether it's a financial situation, how old they are, what their health is, and every single person I deal with, I design a custom plan for. So there isn't one solution for everybody. There isn't one answer for everybody, and depending on your specific situation, you would need something different than your neighbor down the block.
Okay, so I know you also do work in the area of group benefits. So let's say I'm an entrepreneur. I mean, can I get group benefits? Is there some way I can access those? And what if I can't? Okay,
so in today's world, there's a lot more available to self-employed and small business owners than there was 5-10 years ago. For small businesses, and I provide group benefits for small and medium-sized businesses, but what if you are self-employed and it's just you? There are options to get drug coverage and dental coverage at very affordable prices these days, and those expenses are actually 100% deductible to your business, which makes it actually a lot cheaper to use pre-tax business dollars to pay for your medical expenses than it is if you are employed in a company and you have to pay out-of-pocket medical expenses using your personal dollars. So if you are self-employed, you can get a group plan for yourself and your family. If you own a business and you have a few employees, you can maybe get a more comprehensive plan with more benefits. But again, there are options out there available depending on your situation.
So that's very interesting. You're saying I can get a group plan even if just for myself and my family?
Yes.
So we would be considered a group?
Yes, in the group benefits industry, you can have a group of one. It's still considered group. And there are also individual plans, and for some people, the most popular plan on the market actually is Manulife's FlexCare is the most advertised, not necessarily most popular, but most advertised is Manulife's FlexCare plan, and that's an individual plan. So someone who doesn't have their own business and they don't have a group plan through their work, they can purchase an individual plan. But there are other companies that provide that as well. And again, it depends on your needs and your situation. Those may work for you just as well.
So that's very interesting, because you're saying health benefits, the ability to have medical coverage on certain things is probably an area of the biggest gap, because most people are out there talking about life insurance, they're talking about critical illness, which I assume you do all forms of insurance, but you're saying the biggest gap is in the medical. And why is that? Why aren't more people talking about that?
Well, it happens to be that there's about a 3% chance of somebody dying before the age of 65, but there's closer to a 30% chance of somebody getting sick with a critical illness before age 65. So that's about 1 in 3 people have a chance of getting sick. And I'm not sure why people aren't talking about it. It is sort of not, it's not a pleasant thing to talk about, which is why it's not what you're going to find people talking about around, social things and when they get together. But it is definitely, there's a huge need out there today for healthcare. I actually recently conducted market research within my business and spoke to quite a few different people in different industries. And the biggest concern by far, when I asked whether it was life insurance, protecting your income, or healthcare, the biggest concern for people was healthcare expenses.
Okay, now you told us a story about the lawyers, your family. You grew up in a family of lawyers, and I know that you can help anybody who needs insurance, but you're also focused on lawyers as a niche market, yes. Trying to serve lawyers. Why is that, and how can you help? Why would a lawyer want to go to you rather than any other insurance person?
So, as I mentioned before, I really believe in specializing, and every industry has their needs, has their demands, has their stresses, and having somebody that understands those needs and demands is helpful. And I chose to work with lawyers because I've been around them all my life. I understand them, and I believe I can help them. They're working really hard. A lot of them are under a lot of stress. A lot of them earn a lot of money, and if they're going to have something that stops them from earning money or that drains their finances, they're not going to get as far in their career as they're looking to go. Or if they have to worry about a family member that's diagnosed with an illness and they have to stop working, all of that affects their career, affects their family life. And so what is the best way to protect that? And how can we help them so that they don't have to deal with all those financial worries and all that financial strain?
Well, I think it's very smart to focus on that particular market segment. As I said, I know you can help anybody with your expertise, but I think it's very, very smart to do that. And that probably leads us into very well into the portion of our show where we ask our guests for 3 tips. And we have Aviva's tips ahead of time. And the first one is work with a specialist in any field. So whether it's insurance or anything else, you're suggesting that's important. Why is that?
Well, I found over the years that either when I try and do something myself or I've gone to somebody who's more of a generalist, either I ended up having to do it again, spent too much money on it, or made a mistake that really cost me, whether it's in time or money. And so I've learned over the years that it's better to deal with a specialist. They know the ins and outs. They know what to do. It saves you time and it saves you money.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Tip number 2, if you are self-employed, you can pay 100% of your medical expenses through your business. This is very interesting. This is a tip that most people would probably not expect to hear from an insurance advisor. Tell us a little bit more about this.
Well, that's my business tip for the day. If you're self-employed, there is a way to set up a special account. It's administered through an insurance company, and whether or not you have a plan, you can still set up this account. So if you have a group plan, you still can set up to have all your unreimbursed medical expenses paid for through your business using pre-tax business dollars. If you don't have a plan, then you for sure want to set up to have your business expenses paid through your business. And it's just a cheaper way to pay for your medical expenses. And all of us have medical expenses, whether it's dentist, glasses, physio, chiropractor, drug expenses. We all have medical expenses, so this is just a smarter way to pay for it.
Right. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I guess that's the CPA in you coming out, thinking about tax efficiency.
Yes.
And it's key. And I think it's especially poignant because self-employed people don't have the benefits of working with a large company where they may have those things. So this will allow them not only to get some proper insurance, but also to do it in a tax-efficient manner, which they may not have otherwise thought of. So that, I think, is a huge tip number 2. Tip number 3, give more than you get.
I've always believed in that. Pay it forward. Always just give, try and help people, do a little bit more than what's expected of you, and it's other people will appreciate it, and don't look to get back. Just keep giving, and at some point you will get rewarded. Yeah,
that sounds like a great philosophy. So thank you for sharing. Tip number 3, give without any expectation of giving back. Was that it? Give more than you get.
Give more than you get.
Perfect. Wonderful. Aviva, thank you very much for being here. We've been talking to Aviva Abraham from Creative Planning Financial Group. Correct.
Yes.
And the phone number is 416-545-5310. So do give her a call and learn more about how she can help you. And thank you very much for being with us today. I'm David Grossman. You're watching Jexperts.